if no one raises their hand, I am going to call up someone who is talking to a neighbor. All right, so what do you think? If we could put your brain in someone else's body, you would not have the same personality. Why wouldn't you have the same personality?
Your perspective is in your own two eyes, so whatever you're seeing and looking at on your own body is going to shape your perspective.
Okay, so the connection to the other parts of your body, like your eyes. Your eyes have their own qualities which are going to affect what you're seeing. That's a really good point, and so that's going to affect how your brain and how your personality reacts to this. Does anyone think, on the other hand, that you would have the same personality if you put your brain into a robot or into someone else's body?
I think that it would stay pretty similar. I mean, I think that you obviously would try and hold on to the past self. I mean, we're assuming that we're retaining that memory or like that retention. But I think you would definitely change to fit that new body that you're in.
So there would be changes,
yeah.
but your memories
Yeah.
and certain aspects of yourself would
I think
be changed.
it's human. I think you would try and hold on to that as best as you could before you try and adapt to your new.
So kind of that inflexibility of who you are would remain, but there would still be some adaptation.
Yeah.
I feel like your body is influenced, or your brain is influenced so much by your body that if you took the part, you wouldn't be experiencing the world the same.
Exactly. So your brain and body are not disconnected. So that's why I posted all these really fun photos. I'm personally that friend who anytime a movie or a show puts a brain in a robot or in another body, I'm always kind of the one whispering like, no, that wouldn't really work out like that. Or, you know, they upload your personality into the cyberspace. I'm always kind of the party pooper like, that doesn't work like that. Because your brain and your body are connected. And so that's what we're going to talk a lot about today is the biology and the biological factors that have something to do with how you learn, so related to our topic of science and learning. So thanks for engaging with me on that. I really love just kind of going through these thought experiments and thinking about these questions that don't really have an answer. So I hope you can kind of take this with you and keep thinking on it throughout the day. Before we go straight into material, I'm going to do a little more talking about the reminders, the assignments, and some of the stuff that's in the syllabus. I did assign the syllabus to be read by today, so hopefully you have a basic understanding and you brought any questions on the syllabus and assignments that you have. There's still a couple empty seats right up here in the fourth row over here, a couple on the side over there as well. So for today, the reminders are the mini exam, the warm-up writing assignment, and then for next time, read Module 1. I posted a crash course video to kind of re-solidify some of the things we learned last time. I personally love crash course and find it to be a really fun way to get a different perspective and some fun images to connect with what we're learning in class. And then, of course, to complete that Module 1 learning curve due Friday. So quite a few people have already completed the learning curve, which makes me so happy. It looks like it's taking somewhere between half an hour and an hour and a half. And there are still a couple more seats right over here. And so as you're planning that out, maybe don't leave it until 9 a.m. right before it's due, because you might not be able to get it done by 10 when it is due. And with those assignments, for those of you that checked it out, you might have noticed, you do have to complete the whole thing to get any credit at all. So if you get 90% done and then run out of time, you're not getting any points for that. And honestly, for the first one, that's okay. You get to drop a few of those, so don't stress out too much if you're still getting the hang of Canvas and all of that. There's also troubleshooting instructions on Canvas if you're still having a problem with Achieve. That's the second module right under syllabus. So I can see how long it takes you to do those learning curves. So if it takes you a suspiciously short amount of time, you will be hearing from me. I understand if you want to do it with a group and maybe it goes a little quicker that way. Maybe it's a topic that you understand pretty well. But if you're finishing an assignment like that in less than 5 minutes, you're going to flag, it's going to be flagged. The software tells me that something is going on. And you do a disadvantage to your whole rest of the class because then it drags the average down. And that's how I base it, how much I assign on those learning curves. My goal is to really have you spend no longer than a couple hours on any learning curve. So if you do feel like you're spending way more time than that, just let me know. We'll figure it out. I'm not trying to make those like a waste of your time. They're supposed to be useful. There will be material from the learning curves on the exam. So hopefully that's all helpful. So let me talk a little bit more about this mini exam that we have coming up. And it does look like there's a couple empty seats all the way on the side over there if you're still looking for them. So for this mini exam, it will be in class, and it will be much shorter than a regular exam. It's just an early chance for you to see what test questions will look like and to get a feel for taking a test in a huge classroom like this. I know for me, my first test in a huge classroom, I actually got a full letter grade lower than I would usually get than on every other test in the class. That is something that's been shown with research, that testing in a new environment can really cause a lot of distraction and be difficult and cause your grade to go lower. So that's why we're doing a little mini exam, not worth as many points as a regular exam, just to get used to it. If you do have accommodations that require extra time, don't worry about that. We're going to give you way more time, twice as much time as it should take an average student for this mini exam. But after that, it will be required that for accommodations you go to the student testing center. If you have any other accommodations like a smaller class size or listening to music, you do have to schedule the mini exam with the testing center. If you don't have your accommodations letter yet and you're in the process of that, just reach out to me. We'll figure it out. I don't want to stress anyone out, but I just wanted to say that ahead of time so that we're all on the same page. Then I wanted to talk about the warm-up writing assignment. So we have mini writings, which are always in class, and then writing assignments, which are outside of class, but we'll prepare you in class with the information that you need for that. I do expect you to also go to the book to get a little more information, to refresh what we talked about. But for this upcoming writing assignment, we're actually covering that info today. So we'll get a good start on that. You can find the actual assignment in the week 3 module, warm-up writing assignment. And again, it's a little shorter, a little fewer points than the typical writing assignments. That way you have a chance to ask questions and get some feedback from the writing GTAs. And hopefully that'll mean when you have those big assignments, you can get all the points that you deserve. So for the writing assignments, please reach out to the WGTAs, whose emails are all on that first page of the syllabus, with any questions. I'm also happy to answer questions, but honestly, I get so many emails, you'll get a much better answer from the GTAs that are specifically there to help with that, and they are the ones doing the grading for that. So they'll be able to give you more direct feedback on what your actual grade was. So for next time, again, read Module 1, watch that crash course, and complete the Module 1 learning curve. Any questions on the mini exam, writing assignments? Mini writings we'll talk about in a minute because we're about to do one in class today. So far, so good. Awesome. So if you do think of a question, even in the next 5 minutes or at any point in the rest of the day, I just want to direct you to this little flow chart. It is in the syllabus. I meant to talk about it last time, but honestly, I ran out of time and kind of forgot. So I just wanted to show you that you do have a whole teaching team to reach out to. I'm always happy to answer emails, and I'll do my best to get back to them as quickly as possible. But the GTA is really your go-to for anything that you see on the syllabus. So any assignment questions, questions about the schedule, most of your questions can go to the GTA. For questions about the warm-up paper, the writing assignments, you can go to the WGTAs, that's their whole position. For the in-class participation, which is the mini writings or the engagement writings, sometimes you see them called, the undergrad TAs are going to be the ones working with those. And so their emails are also on that first page of the syllabus. You can always reach out to them if you have any questions about that. Additionally, if you want to schedule any kind of review, I don't have plans right now for any large-scale review session. I feel like it's really hard to schedule that so that it's fair to all students. A lot of students can't attend those, especially students who are working, and then it's not really fair if you're working and you have these other obligations that you can't make it to the review. So what we're going to do in this class is just kind of by request, reach out to the undergrad TAs. They'll either schedule something with you, or they can point you to the most important pieces of what to study. Also in this class, I'm going to give you all of the information you need for the exams in the slides and in class. And always on Canvas, you will always have access to those slides. So things like getting notes from a neighbor, or filling something in like you might have to do for another class shouldn't really be necessary for this class. And if you ever start to feel like something surprises you on an exam, just let me know. That is not my goal at all. I want you to know everything that's going to be on the test well ahead of time to reduce stress. Really, I want you to learn the material. I'm not trying to play a guessing game. So please do email the UTAs if you want just some help reviewing. Sometimes studying on your own can be boring and not as motivating, so reach out to them. And then if you have any other questions, let me know. I'm always happy to talk about research. I do neuroscience research and brain imaging myself, and I really, really love to chat about that. You're also about to find out I have a real hobby for human-animal interaction and how human psychology can relate to animal cognition. So if you ever feel like having a chat about that, reach out to me about that too. Okay, any questions about the teaching team or who is here to support you? Okay, again, if you come up with anything, you just reach out to us. So to just rewind back to last time for one quick moment, let's talk about that biopsychosocial model. And remember, we're going to talk a lot about this throughout the entire semester, so it's really critical that you have an applied understanding of what this is. And feel free to read off your notes from last time. Does anyone feel like they have a quick description of what the biopsychosocial model is all about?
Yeah, so it's a combo of three factors: the biological, psychological, and the social. The bio part is things like your diet, your age, your gender, and your treatment choices. And then the psychological is like your stress, memorization techniques, and self-discipline. And then the social is like your culture, environment, and like your interactions and your.
Perfect. So it's this three-part model that we use to look at behavior and mental processes. Biological has to do with things like nutrition, age, things in your body, the things we talked about when we considered whether your brain would still have the same personality in your body. There's all these biological factors that go into that. The psychological, things like memory techniques, study strategies, these ideas that we come up with in psychology to help understand behavior and mental processes. And then the social aspect, which is culture, religion, interactions with the people around you that affect your behavior and mental processes. So to return to our goals for this week, we're trying to create a welcoming and engaging atmosphere, introduce psychology, especially the biopsychosocial model, introduce science of learning so that you have some information to prepare you for this class and other college classes. Let's see, does anyone have an empty seat next to them? I got 2 empty seats right over there. All right, just trying to make sure everyone can have a seat. I love to see everyone showing up. This is great. So we're preparing for this class in all classes, highlighting effective learning strategies and study habits. Today we're going to talk about those biological factors. And I'm going to zip through this real fast. I love biological factors, maybe the most. I'm a little biased. Like I said, I do brain imaging. So this is my favorite stuff. If you need me to slow down at any point or explain something again, please raise your hand. I will make sure that we have enough time to do the mini writing at the end. And then you do have until 1 p.m. to turn in that mini writing if we run over a little bit. But my goal is to give you plenty of time to work on that. So let's jump in. Now this is the topic. This is the main table. It's table 1.1 in your book. This is what that engagement writing, that warm-up writing assignment will be about. So I'm introducing it today. We're going to talk about it even more next week. So by the time that writing assignment is due in week 3, You should be able to just zip it right out, like no problem. This is one of the main things that I want you to get out of this whole unit. So in psychology, we have these different kind of divisions or fields, and this is often the types of like grad programs you might look at if you're considering grad school. And so I want you to consider which of these fields of psychology involve biology. I'll give you the answer to the first one. Neuroscience does, and I think that's the most obvious one. We're all about that brain, behavior, relationship, and the things that interact with that. So personally, I study effort and motivation as it relates to schizophrenia and aging, and I use magnetic resonance imaging techniques to study functional brain activity. None of that will be on the test. I'm just excited about it, so I thought I'd mention. Okay, so what about evolutionary psychology? If you've been kind of working on that learning curve or reading the book, you might have heard, this is how the natural selection of traits promoted the survival of genes. So does this have to do with biology? Yeah? Yeah, it does. And so that's another great crossover where a lot of people from biological fields end up studying psychology and vice versa, because there really is so much crossover when it becomes important to look at genes, genetics, and how our behavior and mental processes have helped us survive over the many eons that humans have evolved. Then we have behavior genetics, and we're actually going to talk about this one a lot more next week. This kind of plays off that idea of human-animal interaction, and a lot of the animal cognition studies that we've done have helped us better understand that behaviors can actually be related to genes. You might already have an intuitive understanding of this if you've ever met a Chihuahua. Chihuahuas, I own one personally. They're adorable and they're great, but that was the worst dog I've ever met. He was mean, he was ferocious, he wanted to attack, he was a little guard dog. And then on the other hand, if you've maybe met like a Bernese Mountain Dog, they tend to be really chill, not quite as angsty. And of course, like their environment is going to have something to do with that, and their training is as well. But a lot of those kind of canine studies have helped us understand behavior genetics. Any questions on the first three so far? Again, I know we're going fast. We're going to dig into them more next week. I'm just trying to give you a brief overview so that you have something to build on when we get into it a little more. Okay, let me know if anything comes up as we keep going. So psychodynamic is how behaviors spring from unconscious drives and conflicts. And you might think of maybe what you've heard of like Freudian psychology. We are going to talk more about Freud and why we don't like Freud anymore. But the one thing that Freud did give us is this idea that there's more going on in your mental processes than what you can consciously be aware of. And you may have had this experience too, like even being in kind of dream states, if you've ever had a dream about something and it hadn't been really on your mind, and then you realize like, oh, I was really stressed out about the first day of school because I just had a nightmare that I showed up to class naked. So that's talking about these unconscious aspects of our understanding of the world that affect our behavior and mental processes. Then we have behavioral psychology. We're going to talk a lot more about this one. And the key here is that we're only looking at what we can observe. And so a behavioral psychologist isn't interested in that unconscious. They're not asking a person what they think and feel about a topic. They're watching what that person is doing and then making interpretations on the psychology based on that. And we'll talk more about that. This is, again, particularly helpful in animal science because you can't ask a dog how it feels about that treat you just hid under a tub. You can only watch what that dog did and then infer that it has some kind of understanding from what you see. And then we get to cognitive psychology. So cognitive is how we encode, process, store, and retrieve information. And this is one that you might not recognize immediately that biology is really tightly incorporated with. But honestly, I'm going to tell you biology is a big aspect of all of these. And I think from the answers about that brain question, We already kind of got a sense of why. Because your unconscious and your behaviors, your cognitive processes and how you store information, it's all about this connection between your brain, your body, and the world around you. And so even in this cognitive psychology, which might not at first seem as biological, there's going to be these study techniques that are proven to work based on how your brain works, based on how your brain and body respond to certain habits. And then finally, sociocultural, how behavior and thinking vary across situations and cultures. This might seem even farther from biology, but again, I promise you it's tightly connected. In different cultures, different aspects of biology are considered differently, and different behaviors are considered acceptable socially. So it's important to remember that any kind of study we're doing is in this context of a society and of a culture. And to keep that in the back of your mind, I'll give you an example a little later in class. Any questions on those last few? Okay, looking good so far. So to kind of jump into one aspect of biology that affects the science of learning, you may have heard of this idea of circadian rhythm or like sleep cycles. Someone in my lab likes to study this, and she refers to it as a chronotype. And you probably have an intuitive understanding of this, right? Are you a night owl or a morning lark? I'll tell you, I really like to wake up at exactly 7, and then I am happy and functional until about 3 p.m., and then I really need a nap, otherwise I just kind of burn out. By 9:30, I'm in bed, and that's the end of the day. But my associate, who actually loves to study this, she's the exact opposite. She will wake up at 10:30, she will work a little bit until noon, and then from noon till 3 be really productive, and then 6 p.m. until midnight is when she is most productive. And so she's always sending me emails at that time, and then I'll respond to her at 8 a.m. And we have these different chronotypes, these different natural inclinations of our sleep-wake cycle. And this is important to consider because sleep helps restore and rebuild our fading memories and of the day's experiences. And so the neural connections that actually form those memories are strengthened in sleep. And they've shown that if you keep someone awake for more than 24 hours after they've learned information, that information is very difficult to retain. It is much less likely for them to hold that memory correctly. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the brain next week, but I just want to introduce this word, the hippocampus. It's the most closely related area to memory, to creating memories, and so I just wanted to introduce that word at this early stage. We're going to talk about it a lot more and where it is and what it does, but I just wanted to remind you that the hippocampus needs sleep in order to get those memories in working order. And then the cortex, which is the outside of the brain, that's where more long-term memories are stored. Again, we're going to talk about exactly what that is and why this happens, but I just wanted you to make the connection that sleep impacts the way that memories are stored in the brain. And here's a couple new terms that we're going to talk more about that I wanted to introduce. So a good night's sleep, or even my favorite thing, a nap, can improve memory. And so I know some people like naps and some people really can't wake back up after a nap. But if you're feeling like you need a nap after a long day, I recommend you try to schedule one in. It's going to help your memory more than it would help to just keep studying. So don't sacrifice sleep for study. This is a study that was done with many, many students. And you have study time on the x-axis, and then you have sleep time on the y-axis, and then each line represents a different grade. And so as you can see, as the study time increased, the sleep time decreased. You have to make room for that studying somewhere. But then over here, we have the study time increase, and the academic problems also increase. And so the results of this study showed that when you're sacrificing sleep in exchange for study time, your academic problems actually increase. And that includes things like dropping out of classes early, failing classes, and having to go to counselors for various reasons. And so I just hope this kind of shows you the evidence is clear that sleeping is really important, as important, if not more important than studying past a certain point. I wanted to quickly touch on this idea of drugs and learning, partly because I have a friend whose kid took a psychology course, and his response to that course was, well, I thought it was going to be all about drugs and cool stuff, but all we did was learn about old white dudes who came up with theories. So this slide is kind of for him. Drugs are definitely something that's going to come up in your college experience, and I want you at least to be prepared for this one aspect of stimulant-type drugs. So caffeine, something that we all have access to, and Adderall as well, is in that stimulant category. And you may also think of some other stimulants that could come across your view as you go off through college. I want to start by saying that if you are prescribed drugs, take those drugs. Do whatever it takes to stay on your medications as prescribed. And if you're having issues with that, you should talk to your doctor. Don't listen to me. I am not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm just giving you this information about drugs in general, mostly for people who are not prescribed drugs. So with that caveat, you should know that stimulants impact mood and memory. And for people who are prescribed stimulants, it improves both of those things. For people who are not prescribed stimulants, it will improve your mood, and it will make you think that you just did better at studying. But ultimately, your test scores will be lower than if you did not take that stimulant, caffeine and Adderall included. So your memory does not improve because of a stimulant, but you will think that it did. That is the nature of this drug, and even when they gave students caffeine, but told them that they were given Adderall, students reported, yes, I was more focused, I did better on this exam, I remembered more of what I studied. But the result of the test that they took showed that none of that was true. They did not remember more, they did not perform better on the test, and they probably felt like they were really focused, but it did not pay off in the way that they had hoped for. So maybe if someone is asking for your prescribed medication, you just let them know, like, hey, if you want to feel like you're doing a much better job, that is what you're going to get from this. It's not going to actually improve your performance. All right, so that was the last thing that I really wanted to cover today. I want to make sure we have plenty of time for the mini writing, so I'm going to skip over the exercise and learning. As you can probably guess, exercise improves learning. I did have the results of our survey that we did in the last class, so I'll just show you those really fast. So in this graph, 1 is answered yes to the question, I exercise at least 3 times a week. And 2 is answered no to the question, I exercise at least 3 times a week. And as you can see on the satisfaction scale, the people who answered yes to that question have a higher median. That line in the middle of the box is the median, so kind of the middle score. And so even in our own class, exercising at least 3 times a week was related to higher life satisfaction. Okay, you don't need to know much else about this. I thought it would be cool to introduce a box plot because you're all going to need to learn about those in statistics class, so now you'll have something to kind of bridge that knowledge as you do. Okay, I've got a couple more slides. Again, we're going to skip over. I have a really fun diagram, but that won't be on the test or anything. Anything we don't cover in class, you never have to worry about studying for that. If I'm going to put it on the exam, I'm going to cover it in a future day of class. That's why it's so important to be in class, or at least to watch the lectures when you get home. So here's our mini writing assignment. You can go to Canvas under Week 1 module or under the Assignments tab. It's in both places. Again, you have until 1 p.m. to finish, but I hope you have enough time to complete this in class. Try to get at least 5 to 8 sentences, but if you don't manage 5 to 8 sentences, we'll be really lenient on you this time. Just stay on topic. So I'd like you to choose at least 3 of the areas of psychology that we just discussed and write 2 possible research questions for each one. So that should be 6 sentences pretty easily if you pick 3 areas and write 2 questions for each one. And again, I know we went through this quickly, so don't stress out about having the perfect answer. I'm not grading for right or wrong. I'm grading for, are you thinking about this topic critically? And then I'm gonna use all of your answers to see where I need to fill in the information a little more next week to prepare you for the writing assignment. So one example would be for neuroscience. You could ask, how do pain messages travel from the hand to the brain? Or how is blood chemistry linked with moods and motives? Okay, and there are more examples for each one in the book, but please don't use the examples from the book. The reason I didn't put the rest of the examples is because sometimes once you see an example, it could be hard to think of something else because now you already sort of know that answer. So the whole rest of the class is just for you to think about this. You can talk about it with a neighbor if you like. If you need to go to the library to have a more quiet zone to finish up the sentences, you're absolutely welcome to do that. If you have specific questions or just want to talk about one of these areas of psychology, just raise your hand and I'll come over to you. I'm going to hang out for the whole rest of the class. Any questions before we get started on just like the idea of the mini writing assignment? What this is, and what we're about to do.
It's okay if we just write like a giant list of questions for it.
Yes, a giant list of questions is acceptable.
Okay.
Just make sure that it's clear to us they fit in these
Yes.
realms. And then one last reminder, if you forgot your computer, or you just don't feel like doing it, or you were sick today and you missed class, you get to drop 3 of these. And we do one almost every week. There's 15 total. So anytime you need to miss a mini writing, just don't worry about it. You get to miss 3. After that, there's no more makeups. You can't make them up outside of class, but try not to stress too hard. They're not supposed to be stressful. They're honestly to help you try to get a feel for this material and to help me see where I can teach you more so that you're ready for the bigger assignment. All right, then get to work. Let me know if I can help at all. Again, if you feel like it's taking way more time than it should, let me know and we'll talk about it. Thanks, everyone. Hi.
Into your design architecture, how I make this to that.
Yes, absolutely. As long as you still clearly have these ideas
Yeah.
of evolutionary.
I was just gonna ask how does your surroundings and space dictate your mood? How
Yes. So which of these do you think that would fit best?
I was thinking more of I guess I hadn't thought about that, but that was just the first question.
I think you can take that as an umbrella and then get more specific from there. So how is your society or your culture reflected in the room that you're in? Okay. And then how does that affect your learning or something like that?
And then that one would be
Maybe sociocultural? Where you could ask something like, for neuroscience, you could say what area of the brain is most active in a red room or something like that.
something specific.
Yes, try and get as specific as you can. If you feel like that's not flowing for you, let me know and we can chat about it. Okay, thank you. No problem. Hi. But if you don't have technical accommodations, let me talk to my the teaching assistants, the coaching club, because what they do is coaching centers is they check your device just to make sure you're not receiving answers or something like that. So if I could just have a monitor, like check your device at the beginning,
Yeah, I can even like
okay.
like device away and just the headphones themselves are noise canceling.
Okay,
So
if you
I don't
can do
even
that, then I don't think we need anything
my
else.
device.
Okay, that works. And that's where the long-term memories are stored. So it's really the whole cortex is important for long-term memory. Hippocampus is a deeper structure. And again, we'll talk more about this next week. You don't need to know the location. Everything's on there. I didn't expect anyone to know that. I just wanted to kind of like introduce the word. Okay. No problem.
She didn't go like off everything that we did.
So, shred questions. Okay, quick Okay, and then right over there. And there it is. You're welcome.
I'm looking for other spots at 10 a.m. So I thought 1 p.m. was like right before tax break. So I was like, what? Yeah, I think that'll be great. Does that seem after I've like seen it all the time. Yeah, no, I know like bits and pieces of their shit, but then I was like, when is P? Yeah. I'm like, no, it's not that part. I might throw it.
Even when you are first president, I'll remember that for the next class. I'm going to include that.
So that final check on Monday, so I can do it first.
I like fresh, like public school, so I'm like, just don't worry. I don't know if I'm easier. So I want to go to the junior high school. Literally, like, I'm just like, all I know is I want to go to college. I might just take a bunch of classes and then see like what major I can major in with those credits. Oh, you don't even need your name. Oh, thank you. It shows up like
Yeah, just curiosity. I think there's one overlap. How does the environment differ that it's referenced in there, the definition from the situation? Because I was thinking, socioeconomic, and at first I said the major, and I was like, also social cultural.
class and everything with spell psychology first, right?
Okay, so it's, okay. And then, yeah, it's kind of everywhere in between, like your behavioral, it could be any of them. Okay, all right.
I used to do that stuff and they made me.
Or like, yes, okay, all right, got it. Yeah, it does. Let me know next week if you're still like. Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
Oh, I think you're going to. Yeah.
Great to meet you. And we'll just do it on yours. Let me open this so the next person can come in. I actually was really confused about this and had to get someone to Zoom help me. So if you go to Macmillan Learning,